Welcome back to The Other Side of Change. I'm Bria Baker, your co-host, alongside the brilliant and beautiful Jamira Burley. January 15th would have been Dr. Martin Luther King's 97th birthday. We celebrated King Day, where we honored his legacy and committed to continuing his work. It's always jarring to be faced with just how far our nation has continued to fall since his assassination. So this reflection is more needed than ever.
Yes. I mean, just last year, we celebrated King's birthday on the same day that Donald Trump was inaugurated for the second time.
Ugh.
As our nation feels even more divided than ever. We have a lot of work to do in attempting to truly reach King's dream, and we all have to roll up our sleeves to get us there.
Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we're not starting from scratch. Many of our revolutionary elders and ancestors left us the diagnoses of the problems that are plaguing us, like the threats posted by moderates, cough, cough. But it's also the blueprints on how we bend this moral arc of the world towards the justice and equity for all that we deserve. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, of course, we got to kick it with the headlines. Jameer, what you got for us?
Oh my God. If you all have saw over the last few days, Donald Trump has made his threats have increased towards Denmark and the entire really NATO community. And as a result, the stock market, particularly the Dow, has dropped more than 870 points. The SP has dropped 2% for the worst day since October on Trump's tariff threats over Greenland. And, you know, one could say, why should we care, right, about the stock market? Well, one, it impacts pensions, it impacts companies' ability to employ and to retain employees. It also impacts our overarching influence around the world and how much the debt the U.S. can continue to take on, recognizing that we are destroying the very economy that continues to uphold us and enable for us to have the influence that we have around the world. As of now, Donald Trump is currently, I believe, in Davos for the annual meeting, and he's continued to make waves. We'll continue to monitor how this will impact our economy and the stock market, particularly as we know that it has a huge influence on how everyday Americans have the ability to be able to access goods and services. So what a time to be alive, where even the president, who is so money hungry and continues to create ways for him to pocket his money for himself, is now threatening the livelihoods of millions of Americans by allowing our economy to suffer due to his baseless threats.
Yeah, like you said, what a time to be alive. I mean, and the hypocrisy in him being this great businessman, and us being citizens whose futures and livelihoods and the ability to rest and not work until death depends on things as frivolous as like whatever whim comes up to him. Like, you know, we are subject to this stock market, so our livelihoods are tied to it, and then he gets to just like pull the strings on the puppeteer, and it really affect us. So I absolutely hate this hellscape that we're in right now. And to continue on with the hellscape, Nicki Minaj is in full-on MAGA Barbie moments. She's now coming after Don Lemon, who was doing some coverage of anti-ICE protesters who disrupted a church service because the pastor or reverend was revealed to be a ICE official and senior leader. And so Nicki Minaj is coming after him using homophobic slurs, which is extra ironic considering most of her fan base is queer, and that she has like leaned into making money from that audience for quite some time. But also she is an immigrant. And if I'm not mistaken, she's not yet a US citizen. So it's just to be coming after a gay Black man who is protesting against ICE, and you are a migrant Black woman who is in community or supposed to be in community with the LGBTQ community. Like, it's just all around. I'm just like, what is she doing? Take her drugs, nurse, call the nurse, whatever you got to do, because Nicki Minaj, I'm just embarrassed to have ever been a barb.
No, absolutely. And, you know, what's quite interesting is that I think when you look at the entire ecosystem of Trump supporters and the Trump administration, these are individuals that are solely out for themselves, regardless of who's going to get hurt. And Nicki Minaj is, even to the extent that Nicki Minaj is attacking her own fan base. And, you know, there are many things we could say about Nicki Minaj. I stopped being a fan of her many years ago because she supported a pedophile, which ironically enough, she is currently supporting another pedophile.
Right.
In regards to her brother, as well as in regards to her partner. But what is crazy is that she could literally just not say anything.
Mhm.
She's choosing
Really.
to outwardly put herself out there and
Yeah.
to use homophobic slurs, knowing that her fan base is from it, and also knowing the damage that ICE is causing around the world, particularly to people who look like her.
Mhm.
And I just want to employ her to shut up.
Yeah, literally. Or
Like
as Ta-Nehisi
literally
Coates would
shut
say,
up.
"Was silence not a better option?"
Silence is always a better option in my book,
Mhm.
and I think more people need to employ it, especially when they are speaking on topics and subjects that they don't have the bandwidth to be
Yeah.
able to truly articulate. And also, just for those who are watching, Don Lemon did not organize the protesters. He
Right.
was a journalist. He happened to
Mhm.
be on the scene reporting the protest as it was occurring.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
to blame him for the fact that people within that state, rightfully so, have a
Yep.
right to peacefully protest, regardless of where it is, including
Yep.
the house of the Lord.
Mhm.
It's pretty ironic watching it all unfold, but
Yeah.
this is
And these
America
Christians
after
are
all.
so ahistorical because if you're following your tradition, the places of worship are
Hmm.
places of protest.
Yeah.
Like Christ was in there literally flipping tables in protest of what he considered sinful, greedy behavior of church leadership. So if you're not willing to flip the table or at least call out a pastor, you're not following any tradition of Jesus Christ. But that's a whole nother conversation that we
Yeah.
should probably get into. But anyway.
Yeah. And of all places that Minaj want to protect from protests, I think that's
Right.
the last one.
Yeah.
In other news, not too far from me, some local news, San Francisco to make childcare free for families earning up less than $230,000 a year,
Wow.
and 50% subsidies for those earning up to $310,000 a year, expanding the city's childcare offering to design to make one of the world's most expensive cities more affordable for its residents. We know
Mm.
that childcare oftentimes is one of the biggest, um, you know, consumers, right, of your wallet. Many families are spending thousands of dollars a month, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on childcare. And so this is a truly a step in the right direction. And I think it echoes what we're seeing happening out of New York, right? There
Yeah.
is when you have politicians whose priorities are truly to create access and access and ability for families to be able to support their families, you see a world of opportunities and policies. And we know that childcare just became free in New York for many New Yorkers, and now San Francisco is also now picking up the mantle. I hope this is a wave that we're seeing across the country, that cities can pay and remove those barriers for families to enable for mothers and fathers to be able to support their families and hopefully get jobs outside of the home without taking on this additional burden. And it is a burden. It's
It
a
is.
huge responsibility.
It is a huge burden. Oh my gosh. I mean, I say all the time now with my second kid, like our daycare bill is going to be more than our mortgage, which is insane. And it is impossible for folks to keep up with those sorts of
Mhm.
increasing, if the expenses of our lives are increasing faster than our pay is increasing, then it does mean a lot more people are saying, okay, I might as well stay home and figure out some sort of thing that I can do from
We
home.
know who normally stays home, right?
Mhm,
Women. Yeah.
exactly, exactly, so definitely pushing this is a push in the right direction. I'd love to see that, and in the spirit of, Democrats doing the right thing and really attacking the issues that matter to us. Virginia, Governor Abigail, what is her last name? Abigail Spanberger.
Yeah.
Abigail Spanberger, who is the first woman governor in Virginia history, was sworn in wearing all white in a nod to the suffragettes. And she has hit the ground running on day one, just as Zohran Mamdani did in New York City and just as those in San Francisco are doing. She has already put out over a dozen executive orders, many repealing decisions made by her previous, more racist predecessor. But a lot of them are addressing healthcare, childcare, energy, education, living expenses like groceries. And so I just love to see her attacking this issue head on, not saying, I need a little time to get settled in. Like, no, you sworn in, get to work. So really, really appreciate what she's doing there. And I think that this is the energy that I want to see from more Democrats. We've done episodes on the toxicity of vote blue no matter who. Here's a wave of politicians who are proving what voting blue can do, and earning people's continued support. So I'm really excited to see what else comes out of there.
Exactly. We need more politicians who are willing to make the lives of their voters better, and not just for a chosen few. And I think the actions that she's taken in her first day leaves me very excited to what's to come. Because again, there are when if Trump can do as much damage in a year as he's done, imagine what good politicians with good priorities and with the interests of the public can do when they actually utilize that power for good and not just for corporate greed. So
Hello, say
time
that.
will tell. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Again, we're going to dig into the life and legacy of MLK and what it means for us all moving forward in the role we have to play. So for those just tuning in, you are watching On the Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. 60 years ago, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was 37 years old. Ironically enough, the same age that many people think I am, and according to my birth certificate, but that's neither here nor there. He was a 37-year-old man, and he moved his work from the South to the North with the same message of eradicating racism in all forms. 2 years later, he was gunned down because white supremacy and capitalism could not afford to allow that message to spread any wider than it already had.
Now, thankfully, Dr. King's words and work have traveled around the globe, and not always with his radical traditions at the forefront. You know, I think his wife worked really, really hard to keep his name and his legacy alive. And yet each year, the same organizations and agencies that were invested in his downfall are pretending to champion him. Agencies like the FBI, like the Trump administration. But that's why the onus falls on each of us to reclaim his legacy, to repeat those words that these folks try to ignore, and to continue on in the fight against what he called the triple evils: racism, capitalism, and militarism.
Yeah, King's assessments of the triple evils are the greatest threats to our shared liberation couldn't be more accurate in today's time. White supremacy continues to terrorize our communities through racist police and immigration enforcement. Turn on your news. Capitalism robs the working class people of their time, their joy, safety, especially today's when you look at student loans and medical debt have taken so much from millions of Americans every single day. And the unchecked militarization that we see all around the world has enabled for multiple genocides and global human rights abuses taking place in our name and with our tax dollars. King gave us the blueprint for how we must speak out against injustices and organize amongst other people of consciousness to do the right thing and to right those wrongs.
Yeah. And then I'm just reminded of one of my favorite King quotes where he talks about peace being not merely the absence of this tension, but the presence of justice. He went on to condemn those who are more committed to civility than to liberation. We need that message right now more than ever. He said it was peace that had been purchased at the price of allowing mobocracy to reign supreme over democracy. It was peace that had been purchased at the price of capitulating to the forces of darkness. This is the type of peace that all men of goodwill hate. It is the type of peace that is obnoxious. It is the type of peace that stinks in the nostrils of the Almighty God. Oh, that pen. But for real, I think it's so powerful. for him to name that with these, racism, militarism, capitalism, that the idea that we can have peace in the midst of that is nonsensical. It should be that we are up in arms and making as much noise, if not more so, than the opposition until we get justice.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that truly frustrates me when you look at people who are oftentimes willing to overlook the suffering of others if it means that they will be protected, right? No one is safe under fascism. No one is safe under systematic racism. Eventually, it starts knocking on your door. And even before it does, you should still care about it. And I think that's one of the amazing things that King tried to emulate in his words and his speeches and his writings, which is why I personally think everyone needs to read and read again the letter from Birmingham jail, because it is full of King that oftentimes get downplayed or overlooked or whitewashed by corporations and institutions of power that seeks to downplay what he was really preaching. And I think a few of my favorite quotes from that letter are, one, and I quote, "We are caught in an inescapable network of neutrality, tied to a single garment of destiny. Wherever affects one directly, affects all indirectly." End quote. Another one is, and I quote, "We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed." End quote. And finally, quote, "For years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with a piercing familiarity. This weight has almost never meant this weight has almost always meant never. We must come to see with our own distinguished Judas that justice too long delayed is justice denied. We have waited for more than 360 years for our constitutional and God-given rights. And since that letter, it has now been 60 years since. So we have waited more than 400 years for our constitutional and God-given right. And every single day I'm reminded that we have to continue to fight, because nothing in this country given to Black, brown, women, those with disabilities, children were given freely. It was something that we all had to fight for and have to continue to fight for, because every day they're looking for ways to strip us of those rights.
When I could not agree more. I feel like this, that message around the waiting is so important for us to remember that, as you said, it's been 400 years, but we have constantly been pushing and fighting for what we have gotten and what we will continue to get. And so I think there's moments where we use that word unprecedented. These are unprecedented times and things feel so bleak, but things have felt bleak before. And yet people continue to persist and continue to speak out and continue to do what they needed to do. But it is mind blowing to feel like what he said 60 years ago feels like he could have been talking about 2026. He could have been talking about this Trump administration. He could have been talking about the Democratic Party, who tells us, hey, let's focus on getting Trump out. Let's not talk about trans people. Let's not talk about Black people. Let's be soft on ICE. Like, no, be loud about it. And, it goes back to, that King quote.
ICE deserves to be terrorized every single goddamn day.
Every single day. Like, why are we holding punches from ICE? Are we kidding? Yeah. What are we doing?
That's like us saying, let's be nice to the KKK. They would treat us better.
Exactly. Or there's some KKK members that we can reach across the aisle, but you just got to talk about economics, and you can't talk about race, because that's going to alienate these really good people who just are put in a bad situation. Like, get out of here. What are you talking about?
There's so many other jobs you can have.
There's so many different jobs you can have, and if this is the one that you think you need, then that says something about how our society is set up anyway. Because there was that moment where it was kind of going viral of all the benefits they were giving to ICE recruits. And it's like, okay, so you can't pay teachers, but you got student loan forgiveness for ICE employees, and you got 6-figure salaries for ICE. Okay, neither here nor there. But it goes back to something else that King wrote about in that letter from Birmingham jail, where he said, "I must confess that over the past few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace which is the absence of tension. And that goes into what I was saying earlier, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, and who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. And I mean, if these moments are not telling us, there is no waiting for any of us. We have to link arms. We have to fight together. There's no better case for a multicultural organizing, intergenerational organizing, cross-class organizing. Like, we have to pull up together and unite against this. And we cannot tell anyone to wait, because the reality is we just need to continue to demand more.
Yeah, and to say wait is such a leisure thing to be able to say. That's a luxury. And it's often said by those who are not currently suffering, right? To wait means that we are willing to overlook the pain and suffering of people today. It means that we are willing to overlook the harm and the deaths and the murder, the state-sanctioned violence against people today. And I don't think we can afford to wait.
No,
we can't afford to wait. If we ever waited for a more convenient time, the vast majority of luxuries and rights and privileges we have today would not exist. And which is why I'm always inspired by the fact that, you know, King is not the only one that had this vision. This vision and clarity was shared by so many of our great leaders, including Assata Shakur, who unfortunately we lost in 2025, another fierce freedom fighter who was the lighthouse guiding us through a fog of fascism. And we can tap into those elders. We can tap into those ancestors more than ever. And we need those leaders of our generation to emerge today, because to wait for it, we're not going to see it. We're not going to see it coming.
Yeah.
We're never going to see it coming, I should say.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, when I think of, you know, what it meant for past generations to benefit from a Harry Belafonte, a Paul Robeson, a Shirley Chisholm, a Fannie Lou Hamer, an Ella Baker, a John Lewis, a Fred Hampton, and Angela Davis, who we still have with us. But for those people to be, you know, young and starting movements and speaking out and just saying all the things that need to be said, a James Baldwin, a Audre Lorde, like they have forever changed the ways that we organize. And like you said, I'm excited for our generation's version of that to rise up. I can recall being that angry teenager who was frustrated with the state of the world. And I was turning to these people's words to be validated and steered in the right direction. And so, like I said before, we aren't starting from scratch. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can turn to that wisdom of the past, even as we innovate and do new things in the future, right? And that bring our own twist and flair and culture and sound to make it make sense for another generation of freedom fighters. But it's just, I'm reminded that, again, when things feel really tough, we are not in it alone.
No, absolutely. We stand on the shoulders of true giants. And so the very least we can do is amplify their message and continue running the races that were started decades ago, right? Through their blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifices. In 2026, that looks like not waiting for the right time. It means speaking up even when your voice shakes, not stopping at just awareness, but moving into action, refusing to accept the status quo. And that is the responsibility of each and every one of us. And it can't just be regulated to those who have more following or have more social status. Every single day, we in our everyday lives, whether you're a grocery store clerk or whether you're a city council member, our job is to continue to fight for those, particularly those who are the most vulnerable within our society. And hopefully in fighting for them, we're fighting for ourselves.
Yeah, say that. Oh, well, I'm hopeful. I do feel hopeful. And I think that we
have no choice to be hopeful.
Right. Yeah, we have no choice but to be hopeful. But I feel hopeful, but I also feel encouraged that that it's not just going to come out of thin air. Like, we've got to be willing to do something. So it's not going to come to us easily, but nothing has ever come to us easily. And yet, you know, we wouldn't be on the tech that we are on, having the conversation that we're having, if someone before us hadn't fought for us to be in the position that we're in. So I feel good. I'm excited that when we come back from the break, we're going to be hearing from a brilliant organizer and pastor who knows a thing or two about intergenerational organizing, about learning from those who came before him, and can help us kind of figure out what to do with all this hope. So you're watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. Today we have someone so special joining us, and to help us make sense of this moment and how we are inspired by King and not, jaded by the state of the world. We've got Reverend Stephen Green in the building, the incredible, someone we've both known and been organizing with for so long. From the pulpit to the public square, Pastor Green's leadership embodies a ministry that is rooted in courage, faith, and hope. He inspires believers to build this beloved community that Dr. King always preached about and actually worked towards. It wasn't just a dream of his. It was something he was willing to make happen with his real hands. Reverend Green holds a Bachelor of Arts in Religion from Morehouse College in Atlanta, a Master of Divinity from the University of Chicago, and a Master of Sacred Theology from a seminary in New York City. But he has been in these streets for quite some time. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
What an honor it is to be here with both of you, Jamira and Bria. I am excited about sharing space with you all, and it's good to be connected here.
Likewise. And I have to say, I think what is indicative of a lot of guests that we've brought on is that many of you, including yourself, has been doing this work long before social media and has continued this message for a very long time. So I just want to uplift the amazing work you have done and continue to do before it was popular, before it was considered social impact. Because I think oftentimes young people look at our leaders on social media and say, well, I can't do this thing because I don't have a huge following. But I'm reminded of people like you that were doing it long before following was a thing or a necessary poison to the work that we're all doing in order to uplift those messages. Talking about Dr. King's legacy, right? Nearly 60 years later, what comes to mind when you're collectively thinking about what's most relevant today in regards to his legacy and his messages?
Yeah. Sure. When I think of Dr. King's legacy, I think of the importance of bringing to the forefront his economic agenda and bringing to the forefront the fact that his final campaign before he was murdered in Memphis, Tennessee, was about bringing a radical redistribution of wealth to this nation. It was a coalition of the anti-war movement, coalition of the Black Power movement, a coalition of the civil rights movement coming together to really demand a guaranteed annual income, to demand a floor for economic security in this country and the economic bill of rights. And I think about how we are still seeing the sort of the depravity of poverty in our nation and how it impacts our school system, how it impacts our healthcare system, how it impacts our environment, and recognizing that is the sort of unfinished work, if you will, of Dr. King. And I think that is something that as we look at the sort of state of our country, even now, we're seeing the need to, recognize that even our challenge with ICE is all connected to economic policy. It's all connected to our economic threshing floor that we have created a system and an environment in which people are targeted because of economic status. They are not targeting Ukrainian or Polish immigrants, if you will, in the Upper West Side of New York City. They are specifically targeting people of color in an economic class. And so I think it's important to see that and to tease that out as we think about Dr. King's legacy in this moment.
That's so important because when you first said economics, I immediately thought about those who make money from the suffering of others. But you're right; they are targeting specifically the poor people, right? Those who lack the most access or ability to fight back and to have their lawyer or their community speak up on behalf of them. And so it's interesting and inspiring seeing so many communities kind of wrap their arms around those who are the most vulnerable at a time where this country is using people status as being poor as the litmus test on whether or not they deserve to be here.
Yeah. And I love that you kind of brought up the guaranteed income campaign and the fact that I think that people associate King with platitudes, but he was a policy nerd. He knew, hey, when I say this thing, I'm trying to rise up something in you emotionally that will chase after these policies with rigor because it has the opportunity to lift all of us up. And I think that that's so important that we not, sometimes our elders, it's like we deify them and put them on a pedestal to the point of thinking like, oh, their work was so, it had a certain aesthetic, and it was nothing aesthetic. It was very, impact focused. And so, when thinking of what our progressive movements need today and how the wisdom of our ancestors and our elders can kind of bridge that divide and help us make sense of how to actually achieve material things. What are your thoughts on just how we can better collaborate cross-generationally, what there is still to learn and take in from those who came before us?
Sure. And I think, one thing that we see from our sort of civil rights era and even Black Power era luminaries that are still with us and our elders is the importance of radical nonviolence or strategic nonviolence as a form of building campaigns. Is that, we're seeing now, like in response to, the oppression in Minneapolis and just the devastation that's happening sort of just repeatedly, whether it be the No Kings March or any other things that Trump has done that we have to respond to, is what I think is a lack of a campaign, is an actual strategic nonviolent campaign that goes through the 6 steps of nonviolent social change: information gathering, education, personal commitment, negotiation, direct action, and reconciliation, in order to achieve a certain goal, right? Like campaigns have a shelf life, campaigns have a target, have a tactic, so that we are focused in our efforts. And I think that's what's missing, and that's something that we really need to hold on to for the previous generation. If you look at the Free South Africa campaign, if you look at the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday campaign, all of these were campaigns. The Poor People's Campaign, the Birmingham campaign, Project C campaign, the Selma campaign, they were all campaigns and not just sort of like one-off rallies or one-off moments. That because nonviolence, when it is consistent and strategic and committed daily, then you see social change. You see change because they stayed off the bus for 381 days in Montgomery. You see a sort of protracted struggle. And when we were in Louisville, Kentucky, with Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour, we moved to Louisville, Kentucky, because we needed to be on the ground daily. We couldn't fly in for a rally, protest. We needed to every day be organizing with the communities, be having demonstrations weekly. And that was how we were able to break the backs of power in Louisville, Kentucky, is because we were in the community, on the ground, working with local activists and building a strategic campaign that was a daily struggle.
And what's interesting, that I think people hear that and think that they don't even realize like the suffering that you all endured as a result of those actions, right? Like the lack of being able to see your families, having to take time off of work. When you think about getting arrested, the Montgomery boycott, where people literally had to walk miles. People complain about now walking 10, 15. You're talking about people who had to work 15, 20 miles both ways by themselves in the Deep South for months across all 4 holidays, across all 4 seasons. And so there is suffering that is almost required of us if we're truly going to get the type of results we need. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen with a one-day boycott. It means that we all have to be comfortable with the potential to be uncomfortable and to lose some of the luxuries that we've have access to in order to get true justice and liberation. And I think that's one of the things that we have to learn from King's legacy is the fact, and the legacy of so many leaders since then, is the fact that we can't allow the leisures of our lives to stop us from fighting for the things that are most important to us. So I'm curious for you, you know, we think about, King and Asada and so many amazing leaders we've lost over the last few years, and lost decades since.
Yeah.
Who should we be listening to now? Who are folks that you're drawing inspiration from outside of yourself that folks can little turn and air to or take direction from as we all continue to try to figure out like what's next and what's our role in this movement?
Especially so that we're not, because we love to celebrate people when they're gone. And it's
Mhm.
like, how can we give people their support, but also their flowers while they're here? So yeah, I can't wait.
Sure. I would have to start with my mentor, Cornel West. I think
Yeah.
Dr.
Mm,
West is, a gift. He's a griot now. He is
yeah.
a wise leader. I think people need to listen to him more. I think people need to read his work while we have him here and
Yeah.
to, be inspired by his mission as a jazz man in the mind, right?
Mm,
To really integrate intellectual imagination with sort of also practical demonstration. Dr. West will teach you about Coltrane and Du Bois and Baldwin, but also will show up at a march and a rally on the front
Yeah.
line, and
yeah.
we will and is willing to go to jail, right? So I think that having a public intellectual like him is amazing that we still have his wisdom with us even now. I think also when I think of just faith leaders, I think of Pastor Tracy Blackman,
Yep.
who is doing an incredible work now with Faith Out Loud and as a public intellectual as well as a
Mhm.
prophetic leader in the public square. I think Reverend Cassandra Gould, who's at Faith in Action as a strategic leader. I think of Mukasa Dada, whose former name was Willie Ricks, who was with Stokely Carmichael in 1966, 60 years ago, in Mississippi when they stood on the back of a flatbed truck and said, "What we need is Black power."
Mhm.
Mukasa Dada is out of Atlanta, Georgia. He's 80 something years old, but is full of wisdom, and he looks at the sort of the antecedent of the movement through a global lens. I mean, he's constantly traveling the world. He put me on game about Venezuela in Selma, Alabama, a couple years ago. Right, every year he goes to Selma to remember the fallen soldiers of the movement, and he gathers young people around, and even when I was at Morehouse, he'd be walking through campus and Brother African. Mukasa Dada is one of those leaders that I think that we still have now that we need to cherish. We need to listen to their stories. We need to write their stories down. We need to get their wisdom, because I'm concerned that Generation Alpha and Generation Beta are going to look around. I was reading an article that came out recently that said that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are like disconnected from the civil rights movement. Like
Yeah.
they just, it's
Yeah.
like, I grew up. We Black History Month. You're gonna learn a speech. You're gonna have to learn.
Yep.
Yep.
You better recite the speech in class.
Yeah, Tom Joyner Morning Show, Black History 365. I mean, it was just constantly around us. And so I wonder, with the rollback of DEI, with the anti sort of Black history, the bland books is happening culturally and in their education spaces, how detached they may be and are becoming to from our history. And so it's important and imperative upon us that we provide
Hammer it in.
vehicles for them to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so
That's
true.
so
I was
disappointing.
just
Wow.
Yeah, but I was talking about someone with that the other day. It's not just what we do in the home, but I also just remember when on MLK Day, your TV was just full of him, his speeches and documentaries about him. And I had grandparents who made us watch Roots every February. Like they didn't care how traumatizing it was. We was going to watch it all the way through every Black History Month. So yeah, I think it's also, that's the power of storytelling and making sure that these stories are accessible, because now it feels like you have to dig it out, especially in this book ban age, like that content is being suppressed. You got to find those leaders to follow, but the stories that we can continue to pass on. Such a good point. So definitely be going home and talking to my 2-year-old about whatever he'll be able to
Start them
understand.
early, okay?
Listen, train them up young. Before we let you go, two final things. If you imagine what it would have been like to still have had a Dr. King alive and around today, still speaking, what would he be saying or doing, in your opinion, about this current moment, this Trump administration, and all that has come with it?
Yes, I think Wow, if Dr. King was here with us in 2026 and on January the 21st, he would help us to see the globalization of our struggle for freedom
Mm,
and liberation. He would help us to see the interconnection between bombs being dropped in Nigeria and Venezuela and ICE agents in the United States, and seeing them as one side of the same coin of imperialism and the American empire's expansion and its necessary decline and end, and seeing
yeah.
what emerges beyond that as a global village of love and action. The beloved community extends beyond borders. It is not a vision for just Black people. It is not a vision for just American satisfaction or American utopian idealism. It is a universal and a global community of goodwill, peace, and harmony. I think
Mhm.
he would look at us and say, what is what is beyond the United Nations? What is the
Mm,
new form of global solidarity that has respect, that becomes the higher power, if you will, that is grounded in humanity, grounded in love, grounded in the ethic of concern and care, so that you don't have presidents, going to sending text messages to European nations that he wants to take another country that is a
Right.
sovereign nation. How do we, and with there's no when there's no checks on that power, right? And so how
yeah.
do we as a people, right, recognize that the people power is far greater than any sovereign ruler, far greater than any political party, whether it be in Venezuela or Chile or even in the United States of America. That I think that the abolition of nation states would be something he would challenge us with, and something that he would want us to really see as a necessity in this moment. And so I'm hoping that we would uncover the more the globalization. People like to always say that, like, Malcolm was the global leader because at the end of his
Mhm.
life he was creating the new organization of Afro Unity, and connected with that. But really, Dr. King and Malcolm at the end of both of their lives essentially
Yeah.
saw the globalization and the sort of like the connection of the freedom struggles
Yeah.
happening
Yeah.
continent
Yep.
and in America as one, right? And so I think we need to move towards that level of solidarity. We need to be in collaboration with our colleagues and comrades in South Africa and Nigeria and Ghana and Venezuela and Colombia, who are still fighting to alleviate oppression and white supremacy and imperialism, and unite our struggles as one so that we can defeat fascism globally.
Mm.
Couldn't have said it better. Could not have said it better. So much
Woo.
work ahead, and we have to look outside ourselves, our communities, our country, to how all of this is impacting each and every one of us. So tell folks how they can continue to stay connected to you and learn more about your work.
Yeah.
Sure. I am the pastor of Greater Allen, AME Cathedral of New York in Jamaica, New York. And so if you want to follow us on Sunday morning, our socials is Greater Allen Cathedral, allencathedral.org. My personal socials is at Green the Rev on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. And so I look forward to connecting with all of you and staying in touch as we build beloved community together. And thank you to both of my sisters for this opportunity to share and to be in this sacred space with you all as you continue to speak truth to power and continue to elevate the voices of the marginalized and to build the beloved community together.
We love you. The pleasure is truly all ours. So grateful you were able to join us. We are going to have Reverend Green back on. So it's not a matter of if, but when, but we are so grateful to you.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
So
Yeah, I feel like
that was a lot. That was pretty heavy, but all good points. So we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching On the Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Welcome back to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. Our worlds feel bleak, but our elders and ancestors have survived times that were just as dangerous, if not more dangerous. Their resilience is proof that we can and we should do more, and that the tools are at our disposal if we decide to buckle up and do the work.
Yeah. Be affirmed, be encouraged. We will win because, as Asada said, it is our duty to fight for our freedom, and it is our duty to win.
Yeah, now is the perfect time to refresh yourself on the lives, the legacy, and enterprise of those who come before us, beginning with the written works from books and biographies of autobiographies of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Assata Shakur, Angela Davis, and countless others that we know and love, and those we haven't learned about.
Yes, exactly. Try to dig out those hidden stories too, because our archive is robust and vast. Don't stop learning from afar either. Just find elders and examples in your community locally. Build intergenerational bridges, because it is how we win. It is the absolute blueprint, and our greatest asset is each other. You've been listening to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network. Until next time, stay informed, stay compassionate, and keep pushing for justice.